Thank you. Hello, everybody. How are we doing tonight? Christmas? Very good. Well, I hope you guys are ready because I'm not. But Mrs. Claus is taking care of everything up there for me. She's making sure that the elves keep working. Does everybody have their lists all ready to go? Yes. I wanted to come down from the North Pole and share with you one of my favorite stories. Can I do that? All right. People think Santa doesn't have cell phones, but who do you think delivers them all? You would be surprised how many cell phones I get asked for. I'm used to a big comfy chair. This is a special story near and dear to Santa's heart. And it reminds me of what Christmas is about. Once upon a mountain top, 3 little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. The first little tree looked up at the stars and said, I want to hold treasure. I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I'll be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world. And the second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling by on its way to the ocean. I want to travel with mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I'll be the strongest ship in the world. The third little tree looked down into the valley below, where busy men and women worked in a busy town. I don't want to leave the mountaintop at all. I want to grow so tall that when people stop to look at me, they'll raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world. Years passed and the rain came, the sun shone, and the little trees grew tall. One day, 3 woodcutters climbed the mountain. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, This tree is beautiful. It's perfect for me. And with a swoop of his shiny axe, the first tree fell. Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest. I shall hold wonderful treasure, the first tree said. The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, This tree is strong. It's perfect for me. And with a swoop of his shiny axe, the second tree fell. Now I shall sail mighty waters, thought the second tree. I shall be a strong ship for mighty kings. The third tree felt her heart sink. When the last woodcutter looked her way, she stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven, but the woodcutter never even looked up. Any kind of tree will do for me, he muttered. And with a swoop of his shiny axe, the third tree fell. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought her to a carpenter shop, but the carpenter fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold, nor with treasure. She was coated with sawdust and filled with hay to feed hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took her to a shipyard. But no mighty sailing ships were being built that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat. She was too small and too weak to sail on an ocean or even a river. Instead, she was taken to a little lake. The third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in a lumber yard. What happened? The once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted was to stay in the mountaintop and point to God. Many, many days and nights passed. The 3 trees nearly forgot their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby in the feed box. "I wish I could make a cradle for him," her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled as the starlight shone on the smooth and sturdy wood. "This manger is beautiful," she said. And suddenly the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in all the world. One evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded into an old fishing boat. The traveler fell asleep as the second tree quietly sailed out into the lake. Soon a thundering and thrashing storm arose. The little tree shuddered. She knew she did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and the rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up, and he stretched out his hand and said, "Peace." The storm stopped as quickly as it had begun. And suddenly, the second tree knew he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. One Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from the forgotten woodpile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when the soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It had made the third tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. And that was better than being the tallest tree in the world. As we get excited about Christmas and all the wonderful gifts, it is my wish, Santa's wish, that we remember what Christmas is about and why we have such a special, special time to celebrate the birth of the Savior. May all your wishes come true. May you have the merriest Christmas. And remember, Santa always loves you. And no matter where you go in the world or what you do, Santa will always be there for you. Merry Christmas, everyone.